Hi friends, so today we're going to be reading this nonfiction text passage about tree frogs. I chose this passage specifically because it has so many examples of features of nonfiction text. So our assignment today is going to be to read this text passage and identify all of the features of nonfiction text. Now, this is where your detective skills are going to come in. Your job after you listen or read this passage to yourself is going to be to identify the features of nonfiction text that are in this passage and then share the information that you read using that feature of nonfiction text. And I'm going to give you some examples when we get through the story, just so you can be really clear of what Miss Neal is looking for. So we're going to get started, and I am going to start reading the passage, Tree Frogs. Tree frogs are amphibians. Amphibians are cold-blooded animals. They begin life with gills and develop lungs as adults. Female tree frogs lay their eggs on the surface of shallow water. The eggs are attached to leaves or other floating vegetation. It takes about 7 to 10 days for the tadpoles to hatch. It takes months for the tadpoles to transform completely into frogs. Now, here's the great part. We just got to our first feature of nonfiction text. This is an example of a timeline, and this timeline is showing us the frog growth cycle. So if I look at my frog growth cycle right here, this is the title, I can see this whole line here is going to tell me information about time relating to the frog's growth cycle. So the very first thing that happens is the egg is fertilized, and after 6 to 9 days, a tadpole hatches. Then 7 to 10 days later, tadpoles begin to swim. 4 weeks after that, the tadpole's gills disappear. 6 to 9 weeks after that, their legs sprout. 12 weeks after that, their body enlarges and their tail shortens, and then 12 to 16 weeks later, the growth cycle is completed. So this is the life of a frog. We see all of their milestones and all the important events in their growth cycle right here. This, again, is an example of a timeline. Now I'm going to move on to our second paragraph, and then I can already see, just by looking here, I can see 4 different nonfiction text features. I'm going to go ahead and get started. Tree frogs spend most of their lives in trees. Because they spend their time on branches and twigs, tree frogs are usually very small. They have discs on their fingers and toes. The discs help them climb. Tree frogs can change colors to camouflage themselves. This protects them from predators. The gray tree frog can change from green to gray to yellow. Wow, that paragraph had so much great information about tree frogs. But I'm going to start looking at my features of nonfiction text to learn even more. So the first thing I'm going to look at is right over here to the right. And I love starting with this feature of nonfiction text first. This is a caption. Now, we learned that captions describe what is either going on in a diagram, an illustration, or a photograph. So this caption is going to explain what's going on in this illustration up here. So this said, this is the inside of a frog's heart. That's awesome to know. So I'm going to look up here at my second feature of nonfiction text in this section, and this is called a cutaway. Now, a cutaway is when you take the whole object and show a picture of that, and then you cut the object in half and you see what's going on inside. So this is a cutaway of a frog's heart. So we can see this is what the frog's heart would look like in its chest, and then this is what it looks like on the inside of the frog's heart. So again, this is a cutaway. The other 2 features of nonfiction text are right here. I see a diagram and I see a photograph. So this diagram is showing us what the body of a frog looks like. And then here's another fantastic example of nonfiction text features. These are labels. So we can see that the frog has 2 front legs. We can see that the frog has 2 eyes. We can see this is the frog's back. And we can see that these are the 2 hind legs for the frog. Again, this is an illustration of a frog, and these are the labels telling us all about the frog's body parts. Next, we have this photograph of a frog's eye. Remember, a photograph is when you take a picture of something in real life. It is a photo of real life taken with a camera. And again, we can see labels on this photograph. So looking at this frog's eye, we can see that this is the ciliaria. It looks like that could probably be something like his eyelid. Then we have the pupil, which is this black part of his eye. And then we have the iris, which is this red-orange section of his eye where the color is. So there were so many features of nonfiction text here, so I'm going to go through what we've seen so far. We've seen a timeline. We have seen a cutaway. We have seen a caption. We have seen a diagram with labels. And we have seen a photograph with labels. Now I'm going to read the third paragraph and get to my last feature of nonfiction text. Different species of frogs can be found all around the world. True tree frogs live in Eurasia, Australia, and America. Shrub frogs live in tropical areas such as Africa and South Asia. Glass frogs live in Central and South America. Gray tree frogs live in the eastern part of the United States and parts of Canada. So the very last feature of nonfiction text that I see in this passage is a map. This map is going to show us parts that are highlighted in the United States. As you can see, some of the states are white and the other states are gray. So what they're showing us here are Cope's gray tree frog with their very technical name down here, Hyla chrysolysis, and the gray tree frog, Hyla versicolor. These are the frogs that live in this region of the United States, all of those gray areas. Wow, we learned so much information about tree frogs just now. So again, I'm going to go over the features of nonfiction text that we saw reading this passage. The first one we saw was a timeline that described the frog's growth cycle. Something I learned in this timeline was that it takes 12 to 16 weeks for the frog's growth cycle to be completed. That's what I learned from the timeline. Next, I learned about this cutaway. This is a cutaway. It's showing us all about the inside of a frog's heart. So I can see what a frog's heart looks like on the outside, and then I can see what's going on the inside. So this is a cutaway. Down below, this is a caption describing the cutaway. This caption tells me that what I'm looking at right now is the inside of a frog's heart. So I learned that this is what the inside of a frog's heart looks like. The next feature of nonfiction text I see is a diagram. This is a diagram or an illustration of a frog, and then I see all these amazing 1, 2, 3, 4 labels. Next, we have a photograph of the frog's eye with more labels describing what each part does. And then last but not least, we have a map, and this tells us where certain types of frogs live in the United States. There are so many features of nonfiction text in here, and I can't wait to read the information you guys learn about tree frogs in your assignment. Happy reading! Bye!